And a very good morning to you. Welcome to K24 this morning. My name is Jeff Morter. If you're joining us for the first time, we take a look at the big stories making headlines right across your dailies and get some analysis on what this really means. Dig a bit deeper into that particular story and the effects and ramifications they'll have. Glad you could join us this morning. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can get me at I am Jeff Morter or at K24 TV. We also have a WhatsApp number scrolling at the bottom of the screen. You'll also need that WhatsApp number if you want some airtime, by the way. And this is all courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. They're making sure you can get yourself your copy of the People Daily straight to your phone. It's only 10 shillings and you can get that right across the country for 10 shillings. You don't need any mobile app on your phone for that. You don't need any data on your phone for that. Just 10 shillings on your phone and the number star 550 star 4 hash. Once again, the number is star 550 star 4 hash. Dial that number, get yourself a copy of your People Daily straight to your phone. And don't forget, right here on the show, all you need to do is download your copy of your People Daily, take that screenshot, and then send it to the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen, and I'll give you 250 bob worth of airtime. So just download your copy of your PD, take that screenshot, and send it to us at the WhatsApp number at the bottom of your screen. And once you do that, you get yourself your airtime, all courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. So let's get cracking on that, of course. And as you do that, let us know your location as well. Let us know where you're getting us from, even as you watch. So once again, take that screenshot, give us your name and where you're watching from, send that to us on the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen, and you get yourself your airtime. It's that simple. As you download your copy of your PD, this is the front page you'll be getting as you download it. Kagwe spills beans on the rot at KEMSA. Minister says management is incompetent and corruption at the authority has made U.S. government to stop selling Kenya reagents for testing COVID-19. That is front and center on this particular story, even as you wonder how to deal with what they're now calling COVID millionaires, COVID billionaires. That story can be found on page 6 of your People Daily. And even as you look at that, I'm looking at the total caseload in terms of COVID-19 right across the country. It stands at 34,493 as of yesterday. That is the big story and the big headline on the front page of your PD. Also on the PD, Murave, my beef with Deputy President Ruto. President's man says second in command was on quote-unquote probation and his character found wanting, but DP brands former Gatanga MP as a conman and a power broker. All is not well, certainly, in Jubilee, and as you can see, it's a story that you can get in your copy of your People Daily. That story on page 5 therein. We move it along to the front page of the Daily Nation now. We thought we'd find the white smoke, but the senator said there was smoke, just that it wasn't white. They still haven't gotten a common ground. And as they try and debate on that particular allocation of revenue to the counties bear the brunt of this delay. County salaries fix over Senate mess. As House drags its feet on the revenue sharing formula, workers in the devolved units are yet to receive salaries for July and August, forcing governors to take commercial loans or reallocate and divert budgets from critical dockets. That story can be found on page 6 of your Daily Nation this morning. It's all about a motion to have Treasury release cash cannot proceed because MPs are in recess. So really caught between a rock and a hard place right there. That story is front and center in your copy of your Daily Nation. Also, Kagwe telling MPs it wasn't me, talking about what's been happening at KEMSA and really what is alleged loss of COVID-19 billions. That story can be found as well in your copy of your Daily Nation on page 7 therein. Also in the Daily Nation, digging deeper into that particular story, on page 7, how firm spoiled the COVID party at KEMSA. The intrigues as to what happened right there and the key people of interest as far as that particular scandal is concerned can be found in your copy of your Daily Nation this morning. We move to the front page of the Standard, and it's all about matters politics. Thorn in DP's flesh, they call it. Tormentor in chief, they say. Jubilee Vice Chair David Murave, unrelenting attacks have put the country's number 2 in an almost permanent defensive posture as 2022 approaches. And lately, Ruto is hitting back hard. That story can be found right there in your copy of your Standard as they look at the intrigues of the ruling party and the dynamics of the political landscape, even as we get closer to 2022. Also, the front page of the Standard, in hot seat, CS throws KEMSA under the bus. Health CS Kagwe and PS Mochache say no money was lost, but fault KEMSA over purchase of COVID-19 equipment. That story is on page 4 and 5 of your Standard this morning. You can get the details right there. Finally, from page of the Star, Ruto plots to fight Raila over Obado. Push to impeach embattled, the governor promises to snowball into full-blown political battle. DP's friendship with Migori chief dates back to his tenure as agriculture minister. And even as ODM has rallied their troops at the county level to impeach Migori governor, it is promised to be a showdown courtesy of the Star in terms of the political intrigues that will take place in Migori to try and save Governor Obado, as Ruto also marshaled his allies there. And that story can be found in your copy of your Star today. So as you can see, really two big stories we're looking at right here. The intrigues with what's been happening at KEMSA and the procurement in that particular process, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic, but also what is happening within the ruling party and how it really moves forward from there. We love it when you're part of the show. You can WhatsApp me on the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen, or get me on Twitter at @IamJeffMote or at K24TV. Good morning. This is your newspaper review. Welcome back, of course, my panel ready to jump into the big stories of the day. In studio, we have Hesbon Hansen. He's a media and political communications expert. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana, welcome to the show.
Asante sana.
Also joining the show via Skype, right here in Nairobi, we have a governance expert by the name of Millie Luanga, no stranger to the show. Good morning, Millie.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Busana, thanks for making time to be on the show. We'll be joined later on by Oliver Karori as well as we discuss the big issues of the day. But really one big story that we need to follow up on, because even the president pronouncing himself on this and wanting a full report in 30 days as to what has been happening here. Hesbon, you look at the front page of the PD, Kagwe spills beans on the rot at KEMSA. But it's quickly devolving into a he said, she said, and pointing fingers and really not getting to the bottom of the matter. What's your assessment so far on this particular issue?
Jeff, I think that's the critical issue here, that if you're going to depend on the people who have been mentioned, the health CS, the health PAs, you know, the chief executive officer of KEMSA, and of course the role that the board performs, we'll just have hits and misses. We'll have people mention, you know, things that are not corroborated. And that's the reason why it is just important that, because we've politicized almost all aspects of our body politics, we just entrust the investigative agencies to give us the real issues and how culpable individuals are. Mm-hmm. You cannot, you know, bank on words of the CEO, for instance, who says that he received text messages that were giving him instructions. And again, you cannot just 100% bank on the words of the CS who is spilling the beans when he says there's a rot. I mean, those are just pathways that are supposed to lead us, you know, to serious investigations of to what extent, you know, are we having a rot at KEMSA? And the rot is not as important as the stealing. What we are interested in is how is this culture of, you know, misusing public resources, flaunting or contravening the procurement provisions which are watertight in the law, contravene to benefit individuals. So if they are contravened, that's one thing. Then the second thing is, who are the individuals who benefit from this, and to what extent were they doing this deliberately? Because again, there's a very thin line between what the CS and the health ministry was supposed to do at a time when almost everyone was thrown in a state of pell-mell. We didn't know what COVID was, how it was going to pan out, to what extent did we need to get this medical equipment as soon as it was possible. And that in itself pushed the CS and the ministry into some sort of action.
Right.
But it didn't really mean that the actions that they took were supposed to be actioned outside the precincts of the law. So if someone contravened the law in the process of being very proactive because there was a pandemic, then that person should be held responsible. But if there were instructions that were sent to KEMSA, and these instructions were geared towards benefiting certain individuals who knew that there was a procurement that was going to happen, these individuals also need to take that responsibility and be held culpable. Because that in itself is stealing of public money that we want to camouflage and call very beautiful things that there are cartels here and there. It's stealing. And
I want to bounce to Millie on this, but before I do that, you've spoken about a word that has been bandied around for quite a while, cartels.
Yes.
The president has given 30 days to get the report on the companies that have gotten these particular tenders, and essentially from there we'd know the directors of these companies. Do we finally get to unmask this word cartel and now talk about Hesbon and Jeff as the people pilfering?
I think, Jeff, it's just a matter of time. You know, if you look at the society that we live in today, especially Kenya, one, there's a political goodwill from the president to fight corruption. And I think that has manifested itself in the number of people who have been arraigned in court. Then secondly, I think there is a sense in which the media has become a lot more proactive in, you know, putting a spotlight on corruption cases, and they're doing that consistently. I mean, I have 5 newspapers here, and all of them have something on KEMSA and corruption. So in the next 30 days, you would expect that because the president committed himself to this on a public arena, and then the media is also following on this, there is a sense in which we are going to have a clear idea of who are the guys who are behind the haste.
Right.
Whether they are the cartels or not may not really come out clearly, because again, the way cartels work, from what I understand, is they have very shadowy, you know, companies, and before you get to the real guys, you have so many layers. So a few people will be caught, and probably the leaders to these cartels. Let
me get Millie in on this one as well, as we look at where we stand at this particular point. KEMSA management had pointed to CS Kagwe and PS Mochachi on this, talking about they received very firm directions on how to move on this. CS Kagwe pointing back to these particular management. But it almost feels like any time we have a corruption case in Kenya, the bigger the amount of money that has been stolen, the harder it is to follow the money trail to the end. Do you feel optimistic that on this one we do get to find who got this money, how the procurement was done, and people do the time for this particular crime?
I think that we may get to know a little bit more information this time round. And the reason why I think so is because there seems to be a lot of anger generally directed towards this. What I found a bit unfortunate was the parliamentary proceedings yesterday, where it seemed to be that there was more focus on trying to demonize KEMSA than in finding out what exactly the issues were. I remember one of the parliamentarians asking a very key question, that why is there a lot of communication between the PS and KEMSA officials after a number of months after the issue or COVID had come into the country, and there was not as much communication earlier on. And for me, that was a key question and a key angle that they should have delved into, because then we will look at responsibility. Where does the final responsibility lie? Did the ministry try right from the beginning, earlier on, even before the funds were released, to try and give some guidance? Because the claim that then the chairman of KEMSA would have to take political responsibility, although, of course, in an ideal situation, the CS and the PS are the ones who should automatically be taking the political liability for the situation we find ourselves in. So for me, that process that was there yesterday before Parliament, I'm glad that it was aired in media, because it gave Kenyans an opportunity to be able to look at it for themselves and begin to assess in their own understanding, to the best of their understanding, where they think responsibility lies. But again, it was good because it began to show us some of the games that we can potentially see in play. And I hope that the many Kenyans speak up public spaces will begin to speak up now and point out to some of the policies. One of the MPs was even just focused on giving the CS ammunition with which to hit KEMSA, that this was a problem, this was a problem, this other one was a problem, and I wondered whether that is really what an inquiry is supposed to be. But some, of course, were very keen. There were some, like I remember Honorable Koros, who was very keen and was speaking with the passion that most Kenyans feel out here. The disgust with which Kenyans were holding the fact that, or deeming the fact that people were able to actually consume or misuse money that is meant to help people who potentially die.
We're also joined by Oliver Karori. He's an advocate of the High Court. He's in studio as well. Good morning, Oliver. Welcome to the show.
Morning, Jeff. Sorry for being late.
Karibu sana, welcome. I just want us to quickly move on this particular topic. And some people looking at what now is dubbed the mafia house and talking about, yes, even as we try and get to the bottom of COVID-19, there are still some medical containers that we don't know why they were brought. They've never been used. They've been dumped somewhere, and we are conveniently moving on. There's so much rot in there, but you're selectively choosing, this is what we'll follow, this other one we leave behind. Do you feel that's the assessment, or do you feel once we start with COVID-19, now we work our way backwards and really clean up the Ministry of Health?
Any serious onlooker, Jeff, will think that that will be the direction we ought to take to clear the mess once and for all. But just like newspapers, Kenyans have been trained, or they have been told to live with one scandal at a time. We come with KEMSA, with the COVID billionaires, we are done. We wait for another expose from a media house. That is how we go. And unfortunately, at times that is how also our investigative agencies behave. They don't conclusively finish what began. For example, as we talk about mafia house scandal, there have been a lot of scandals before. Where are they now? How far are they in investigation? We have the one for container, the 10 million a container. The ones that are still lying somewhere in Mombasa. Nobody knows, and nobody knows if the Kenyan populace got value for their money up to date. But coming back to the germane discussion, the issue of KEMSA and COVID, it is very interesting to note that today nobody is asking, even yesterday, the parliamentary committees, the two that were working on the minister and the PS, nobody is asking them to resign. By the way, and taking or stepping aside is not saying that Mutahi Kagwe and Mochache are guilty. Stepping aside is to allow the people to build trust in the investigative process. The same way Manjari stepped aside. The same, Manjari implicated Kagwe and Mochache. He said, I received instructions from the two. It is just good in the eyes of onlookers. They say justice must not only seem to be done, but it is good for it to be beyond reproach.
Right.
So that when we tell people we are doing investigation, I cannot investigate a chair you are sitting on while you are still seated. You need to be standing aside there so that I can get into the nitty-gritty of that chair. So for Mutahi Kagwe, it is not cowardice. It is not asking too much. There are good people who have resigned outside, stepped aside outside there, and they are still here in this country doing serious work. We had Kiraitu Murungi, we have Mutahi Kimunya, and other individuals who have stepped aside, and they are here. Look at it this way. How do we go outside there and tell a Kenyan who was implicated in a corruption case, and when you read the Economic Crimes Act, when you just take plea, you step aside. That threshold should be higher for state officers. Right. If that is the requirement of law in public officers, what about state officers? That bar should not be lower on them because they exercise a greater responsibility.
Right. It's interesting he says that because even with the examples he's mentioned, let's not forget Amos Kimunya said he would rather die than, resign. Do you feel it's possible that...
He did not die when he resigned.
He certainly did not. He's back now. But do you think this is something possibly in the horizon where CS Kagwe, we're waiting for a daily update, but he comes to tender his, standing aside just for these investigations to be done?
Well, I agree with Kipchumba. I mean, it will not be a hallmark of weakness. As a matter of fact, it will be a hallmark of integrity and, of course, allowing the due process to clear him, which would give a lot of credibility to the process and, of course, to the integrity of the person that he is. But I think the allegations that are leveled against him, are allegations that probably need to be put in context. When a CEO says that he received instructions from the CS and the PS, the onus is on the investigative agencies if there is no resignation, because again, to resign is a question of your moral integrity. Do you see a sense in which you are culpable and you're going to impede justice? Because you know the act that you're involved in. So if the cabinet secretary and his PS sent instructions that were basically part of their daily jobs and had nothing to do with the procurement process, and even if they had anything to do with instructions in terms of getting these equipments because it was a pandemic period, if those instructions were not geared towards any monetary gains, to any individual, then I think it is within their moral authority to weigh that. If they didn't give an instruction, they have no reason to resign. Right. But it would be a good thing if that precedence is set and they're exonerated and they come back to office. But I think, having said that, you know, we keep saying that we move from one corruption case to another, and the investigative agencies move with that, which probably is erroneous. Because if you look at the case of my governor, Governor Obado, I mean, it's coming now, but this is a crime that purportedly was committed between 2013 and 2017, which means behind the scene, the investigative agencies have been working. But I think the critical thing is, if something is not in the public domain, then who do we question? And I think that brings the role of the media to the fore.
Right.
That if we run away from KEMSA and move to something else, the responsibility will be very big on the media, that we just need to have these conversations in the public domain, keep interrogating, and if possible, bring the other corruption cases that we've had, so that they're in the public domain.
Okay. Millie, I want to come to you on this, even as you know, Hesbon puts it, that the media also needs to follow up on that day two journalism, just to make sure that these particular stories are still in, you know, the public's consciousness, even as we move forward. But we are standing at a very tricky scenario as we look right now, because yesterday it was reported in one of the dailies that most state agencies still aren't compliant with, you know, for example, e-procurement. And that's why such instances are taking place. They're not on IFMIS, they're not on PPIP, and that's why all of this is happening behind the scenes. Who's supposed to ensure this compliance, you know, with the agency so that this doesn't happen? Because it seems like this is just a symptom of a much bigger problem, even as we talk about the COVID-19 scandal.
Very true. I think that at one point, Kenya was very key with performance particularly of the senior management level in each and every body, whether it is a SAGA or a ministry or whatever body it is. And those are some of the things that you would be asking the board and the CEO, the executive, the senior executive within the SAGAs to confirm to what extent they've been able to move with the time. I mean, it is a shame, it is a big shame that particularly when Jubilee won, that was 2013, 2017, came into power or in leadership with the cry that they were digital and everything was going to go digital. And most of the people who were put in as leaders or as chairpersons and board members in most of these sagas were people who were deemed to be, as is expected, friendly to the administration. Therefore, they should have been aware of what the party expected of its administration, that they would be moving with the times. Apparently, they have not been. If you can remember, much as people may want to bedevil her sometimes, but if you can remember that when Waiguru was the CS devolution, that is one of the things she kept lamenting about the IFMIS and the digitization of the procurement process and the backlash she was receiving from all the counties. And remember that coupled with this is the fact that there's also been this hue and cry that how do you merge these sagas or don't merge them, depending on the reports that Abdi Kadir and his team released saying that some of these bodies need to be merged. Now, when you look at the COVID probe that we were watching yesterday, the emphasis is on too much power given to KEMSA. Why is it one strong body? Yet, I think that from the probe that we had, the idea was that we should have more powerful institutions, more single institutions than diversification of roles to many bodies. I think we keep moving 2 steps forward, 7 steps back, 1 step forward, 3 back, in our attempt to try and regularize things. And that is simply because corruption loves vacuum. When there's disorganization and lack of clarity, there's room to play games.
And as we look to our first break, don't forget you can get yourself 250 shillings worth of airtime for just sending us your screenshot of your downloaded copy of the PD. Tell us your name and tell us where you're watching from, and you could get that right here on the show. Just before we get into that, very quickly, even as we wind up on this particular discussion, Oliver, do you think we get names and people to do the time? Because we've seen junior levels of, civil service some people who are culpable of stealing 5 million, doing, jail time. For this, do you see somebody who has pilfered billions of Kenya shillings doing time for that crime?
At times when you want to enforce such a things, we need seriousness from the top. And I've always opined that we need to move away from speeches about condemning corruption to real actions. We had some semblance of that a while back. But now with a lot of confusion in the political space, you are not sure where we are. Because looking at whatever is happening in KEMSA, you ought to understand for the last 8 months, the president has been so tough talking about corruption. Actually, not 8 months, 1 year, above a year. And any onlooker will expect that now that we are talking about corruption in one of those very delicate places and involving one of our biggest donors, Global Fund, USAID, those that fund a bigger sector of our healthcare, one will expect that something will be done, not even about the fight about corruption, but to win the donors, the confidence of the donors. That is the first step. The second step is to make sure that the war on corruption does not lose steam. Because we have always been told that we have cartels in Mafia House, we have mafias there. But my question, Jeff, to you has always been this. Everybody who works in this K24 company has a name and an employment number. Who is this cartel or a mafia in the Mafia House there who is so huge that the minister cannot confront? The other question is this: do you mean we have bigger people in this country outside the laid, transparent procedure of government, the one set out in the constitution under the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature? Where do these cartels fall within this system?
Okay.
So the question is this: we need, because when Mutai Kagwe says that there are cartels in Mafia House, the journalists in this country should not stop there. They should just tell Mutai, give us the names. The journalists, the field of journalism in this country has enough journalists to take down cartels, even if the ministers can't. With 3 exposés, they will disappear. I can tell you. It is only that those cartels is an excuse of people not fighting corruption. And we have seen, just as finality, we have seen the people who have been mentioned widely in these corruption scandals are the relatives of who is who in this country. Look at even those companies. Jeff, even if you are worked here as a procurement officer, you will not give half of those companies jobs. You cannot, just a normal conscience, I cannot give a company which was registered 2 months, even a job of 5 million.
Okay, let's take a short break at that particular point in time. And even as we do that, of course, the intrigues continue there. But you can get yourself airtime, all courtesy of the PD and Safaricom. Just take a screenshot of your downloaded copy of your PD on your phone. Send us your name and location from where you're watching the show. And you get 250 bob worth of airtime. Let's see who we have. Let's have it right there. James Munyari from Kasarani, first winner right here. 250 bob worth of airtime for you. We have another winner, Ray Baraza from Tongaren in Bungoma County. We also have Grace Kabonoki from Mombasa showing us her copy of her e-paper of the PD. Right there, those are the first 3 winners right there. More as we go through the show. And it could be you, actually. All you need to do is download your copy of your People Daily on your phone. The number that you need is *550 *4#. Once again, the number is *550 *4#. Download your copy, take a screenshot, send it to us, and you get yourself airtime, all courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. Short break right now. We are back after the break with more. This is K24 This Morning.